news. Now, after working with some of the biggest names in TV, producer and writer Ian Brown has turned to one of the smallest names in his garden. The Londoner began writing children's books using his very own tortoise, Albert, for inspiration, who is now pushing 80 years old. Well, Albert was rescued by his wife's family over 50 years ago, and now Ian uses him to tell uplifting tales in beautifully illustrated books. He joined James to talk about the second book adventure, Albert and the Wind.
Albert is a tortoise, and he's about 80 years old, we think. Various vets have aged him to that. But he entered the family life, if you like, via my wife. When she was a little girl, about 50-odd years ago, she won't thank me for saying that, but she found him. He had been abandoned, it seems, by some lock-up garages near where she lived. And like a lot of people who stumble upon a tortoise, at first you think it's a big stone. And that's what they thought, and then they realised it's a tortoise, and they took it in and they put sort of various appeals on lampposts in the newsagent window, all that. Anyone claiming a tortoise, no one came forward, so they took him in. And they slowly became experts, because back then there was a lot of sort of misunderstanding about how to look after tortoises. You know, even Blue Peter, dare I say, used to say, paint your phone number on the shell. Of course, back then it was in lead paint, which is not good for a tortoise shell, because it is a breathing, living part of the animal. And so he lived happily there for many decades. And we actually took him on about 13, 14 years ago. And he sort of generally lives in our garden in East London. And the books came about because these things genuinely happened to him and other tortoises. The first book, which came out in April, Albert Upside Down, and Albert and the Wind, which is the follow-up book, generally he eats, obviously, salad. He eats, you know, lettuce and bits of carrot and bits of strawberry as a treat every now and then. And on a blustery day, it will blow away from him if he's not sort of... What they do is they kind of rest their shell on it to kind of keep it all secure. But if he doesn't do that, it blows away. And I thought, well, hang on, the garden creatures would have to retrieve it, bring it back. And so the idea is they do that, and then he has to think up a way to say thank you to them.
Obviously, with all children's books, it's got a kind of touching tale. What's the kind of message you hope to get across for any parent buying this for their children?
Well, yeah, the thing is, with the first book, and indeed the second book, they were written some time ago. It took me a very long time to get a book deal. Although I've worked in television for 30 years, producing with some very well-known names and writing for very well-known names, I really have been trying for about 30 years to get a book deal, on and off, you know, all different things, novels, other children's books, that sort of thing. And wrote the Albert books. Owen Clark, who I work with on another animation project and other things, he agreed to have a go at some illustrations, which were amazing and are amazing. I would highly recommend those to people. And as I say, we wrote it and did it some time ago. But then, obviously, the pandemic kicked in and lockdowns kicked in. And the whole message of be kind, help others, in the first book, literally help others get back on their feet, it all had a much greater resonance as the lockdown, went on. And local businesses struggled and neighbours struggled, and you heard about, the hardships going on. And the second book, Albert and the Wind, out now, is all about, again, being kind, helping others, but also about saying thank you properly when you've had that help.
Why children's books? Why did you want to write those sort of lovely tales?
Well, it just was something I always wanted to do, actually. I just always, from way back when, was writing these more sort of light-hearted, if you like, stories. It's great to work with Owen on them as well, because he brings so much with the illustrations. It's just amazing.
They are incredible. I've had a look inside, and they are incredibly detailed and amazing. And there's also a sort of animation that is coming with the book as well.
Absolutely, as with all these things. They are out as e-books as well, but they are also out as animated e-books, because Owen, if you like, for his day job, from a few decades as well, like me, has worked in television, in animation. I'm just thrilled that we can bring the stories to life even more. And it's a great joy for me as well to do the voices, I have to say, for the animation. I'm not a great actor, so I have to imagine other famous people's voices, if you like. So the spider in it is kind of a cross, and this is very current, obviously, but a cross between Terry Thomas and Leslie Phillips, so he from the Carry On films, if you like. And the worms are kind of Sid James. And in the new book, there's the bee speaks. And I was imagining, well, the bee, obviously hovering and shaking, is probably a bit vibrato, so like that. And so the bee is Kenneth Williams doing an impersonation of Dame Edith Evans, and that is not current at all. I totally understand that. But if you sort of Google him doing it, he did it on lots of chat shows once upon a time with Parkinson's and such like, and so I've done my best effort at that, and it has come out very comical, I hope. And the kids love it when I read it to them at schools and libraries and wherever now. In a sense, real Albert and illustrated Albert now I call it they've entered the digitort age, ho-ho. But he has his own Facebook, Twitter, his own website now, and the feedback coming is just amazing. And, of course, through social media, he reaches the whole world now. So he's got fans in America, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, everywhere. And tortoises are very important in some countries. They're very important in Japan and China because I think they're seen as lucky. They're seen as sort of an animal to revere. And it's great to sort of bring Albert in all his forms, real Albert and picture book Albert, to all these people. It's amazing.
Well, that lovely book is out now.